Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube. Back to do two character retrospectives here today. The first is Carolyn Stoddard from the House of Dark Shadows movie. As you guys know, I have been doing character retrospectives uh, for for the movie House of Dark Shadows, and I am doing character retrospectives for all three films, all three Dark Shadows movies. Still on House, and obviously, like I said, I'm doing Carolyn. So, this one's really good and really simple. What's the differences? Okay, there is, though Carolyn has a boyfriend in here slash fiance, this is not Joe Haskell. And I want to be very clear. I don't feel Todd Blake, Don Briscoe's character, which I'm going to do him next, is a representation of Joe Haskell at all. He's a completely different character, but I'll save that for his retrospective. Um, there is no Joe Haskell here. Joel Carruthers' character in the House of Dark Shadows movie, just like Victoria Winters, in every sense doesn't exist. Um, so there's that. By the way, I will be doing Sheriff George Patterson as well as a part of this retrospective, as a part of a retrospective down the road, because he's in this movie. Um, for Carolyn, again, she's dating Todd Blake, who's played by the actor Don Briscoe, and they're dating. They're also engaged, I believe. Also, keep in mind she's the first one to sort of suspect that Barnabas is might not be who he says he is. We're not real sure because there's very few. There's a few hints. Okay, when she's with Todd Blake at the Blue Whale Bar, restaurant, whatever you want to call it. Um, keep in mind, or pub, whatever you want to say. Willie Loomis is there, and she runs into him. She goes, "Hey, we've been looking for you all day. You forgot your pay. Oh, I'll tell your dad. I'll come up and get it." And his whole attitude, she notices two things right away. Number one, his whole attitude has changed. Um, and number two, he's with somebody who's wearing an onyx ring, and she sees Barnabas's hand with the ring on. She doesn't know who it is, but she finds this odd. This man's trying to remain hidden. So she goes back to Todd Blake and she goes, he's acting very strange. He's like a completely different person. His whole personality has changed. Again, this is a touch upon the series. I won't get into Willie too much because again, he's getting his own retrospective. With Carolyn is going to get attacked by Barnabas, and you might say, "Well, why?" if you've never seen the House of Dark Shadows movie. Now, does she get attacked by Barnabas in the series? Yes, but for a similarly different reason, if that makes sense. Okay, in this series, remember Barnabas has become old man Barnabas. He wanted Julia to rush the experiment. She did what the patient wanted, and this is why patients should not tell their doctors all the time what to do. Because you are not a doctor, and they are. Um, I'm not saying you shouldn't have input, but that being said, Julia listens to Barnabas, and Barnabas ends up looking like an old man. In the series. Now, Carolyn comes to the old house. She goes down in the basement. She sees a coffin. She opens it, and Barnabas, it gets open, and Barnabas, he bites her, and this causes him to go back to a young man. um, good times, right? Good times. So that being said, in the House of Dark Shadows movie, Carolyn doesn't find the coffin. Um, there's no reveal by Carolyn here, but there would have been. And I think that's a huge difference. Barnabas says he's from London in the movie, just like he does. He says he's from Kentucky Square in the movie, where he says he lived with a cousin in the countryside in the series. Now, Carolyn says to Barnabas, "Oh, you have to give me some people to look up in England, because Carolyn is going to England later that year." Barnabas cannot let Carolyn leave to England. If it were anywhere else, he wouldn't probably care. But he can't take that chance because he knows that'll reveal him. So, though she doesn't find out his secret directly, she would have. And she finds it out through the old fashioned way, where when he bites her, she realizes what he is. She's under his control now. Carolyn begins acting strange. Todd Blake, I'll get into him next. Don Briscoe does a really great job with his performance. It's both him and Nancy Barrett's chemistry was great in this movie. I know they performed in the series as well, but still, um, Carolyn Carolyn gets very very jealous of the whole Maggie Evans Josette thing in the movie, whereas in the series she's sort of on the fence about interfering with the whole Victoria Winterson, but then she does it anyway. Because she went Barn. She's got Carolyn in the series has many irons in the fire, we'll say. Um, but she's enjoying the power in the series. In the movie, um, I would say she enjoys it, but I'll say this: the jealousy factor is a lot more intense in the movie. You could tell Carolyn wants to be with Barnabas more now. You know, let me put it this way: once Barnabas bites her, it's like Todd Blake, who you know, Todd Blake has pretty much become an afterthought to her, and she wants to be with Barnabas, his own cousin, her own cousin, distant cousin, but still, distant relative cousin, cousin who's over 100 years old. So, so she's upset about this, and she comes into the old house into Josette's room. Barnabas isn't too happy to see her. He bites her some more. This time on the neck again. This time he latches on and he does not let up. I have so many. A lot of my favorite teens all involve Nancy Barrett's Carolyn. Number one, Willie Loomis and Nancy Barrett walking back to the Lyndhurst estate, the great house, um, Collinwood, if you will. And Sean Garland is trying to drive the blood up. It's just hysterically funny. It's a moment of comedy with but a mix of seriousness. It's like, really? Like, really? You're trying to drive that much blood? Like, that ain't gonna happen. And he hears Barnabas calling him. The dogs are howling. He's like, I gotta go. You can make it the rest of the way. I mean, the house is right there. But this woman can barely stand by herself, let alone walk. Um, she gets inside the house, and Nancy Barrett collapses. The servant, if you will, or the character, one of the servants sees her. They drop the tray on the floor. Um, and Carolyn Collins' daughter dies. Okay, so Barnabas never actually kills Carolyn in the series, but he does somewhat get her killed in the series with the whole 1995 arc. Um, it's a sad state of affairs. I tell you, 1995. Um, that's another difference with the movie. I'm trying to think of, because there's not too much more left to say other than Carolyn being a vampire, which I'm going to get into here. Um, Carolyn as a vampire here is a lot of fun because it never really got to happen in the series from that standpoint of her being a menace. You know, I mean, she could be a nuisance, but not really a menace. I wouldn't even say her teaming up with Barnabas in the series was her really being that much of a menace. I mean, a little bit, but in the movie, she's 100% a menace as a vampire. She's very much 100% an antagonist. Um, that little girl innocence or little you know adult innocence is gone in the movie, if you will. And her interaction with David Hennessy's David Collins as she hollers for as she calls for him and he comes at her and he goes, you're dead, and he runs away is so good. Again, another one of my favorite scenes. But then when you know when David tells everybody Don Briscoe's Todd Blake, he's just really he's disgusted by everything going on about Carolyn's death. That Carolyn came back out of the ground. He thinks Professor Stokes is crazy, but not completely crazy. And that's something again. I have to somewhat wait for Todd Blake. I really do. I don't want to spoil too much Todd Blake here. Carolyn is they're in like a loft, and Carolyn is chowing down on some Todd Blake neck. She's going after the blood, and his arm just collapses. Someone hears it, and they go upstairs. And I love how they in the House of Dark Shadows. You get a lot of first person aspect. You get Carolyn's first person view of Barnabas coming at her. You get Carolyn's first person view as they gather around to stake her. It's really a cool camera moment for in the movie. And you get a lot of those shots too. By the way, it's not just Carolyn. You get Maggie. You get Elizabeth. It's really cool. It's one of my favorite things about House is the camera angles. I'm trying to think. Obviously, Carolyn gets staked, and that's all she wrote for Carolyn. Colin Stoddard in the movie. She gets killed off in the movie. Um, to be fair, to be fair, um, you know, is Carolyn Colin Stoddard the same Carolyn? And no, no. This Carolyn's a lot more grown up. She's a lot more mature. She doesn't have the childish antics that go on like she does in the series. So this is a much more. This Carolyn knows what she wants to do with her life. Something I believe Cara Tillys and Christine Pierce pointed out too as well. So I'll leave a link in the description box to their channel. Shout out to those two girls. Um, Carolyn's death hit me hard in the movie. With a movie though, it's more expected. Because again, the movie when you make a horror movie, you know bodies are gonna drop. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of when's it gonna happen and who's it gonna be. Um, it's a lot of people in the house actually. So, but I'm gonna talk about somebody who actually lives in House of Dark Shadows. Um, next, and that would be Don Briscoe's. So I hope you guys enjoyed the Carolyn Collins Stoddard character retrospective. See you here in a bit.